Come on, Livingston. We gotta go on and on and on. Together we can make it. We gotta go on and on and on. Come on, Livingston.
Knocks it through. Mullen bursting into the box. Josh Mullen.
Together we can make it.
Mullen's ball across, it's turned in! It's Pittman who's got it! Livingston leads!
Road is long.
Can they get the ball back in? O'Brien.
Lead! And Livingston have the lead!
Man, can score.
If we march together.
The full-time whistle blows and David Hayes celebrates! And the Livingston fans join in exultation.
Come on, Livingston.
Livingston have the lead against Rangers, and they are certainly rising to a few occasions on their return to the top flight in Scotland.
Come on, Livingston. We gotta go.
Hello and welcome back to Talk Livi, the podcast dedicated to everything Livingston Football Club and Scottish football. My name's Euan and today I'm joined by Angus. How you doing, mate?
Yeah, doing great. Another good weekend under our belts. You know, a couple of good results. Can't wait to talk about it. But yeah, not doing too bad. How about yourself?
Much the same as yourself, mate. Much the same as yourself. Just 4 goals for the first team and then 4 goals for our women's team as well. It's not a bad weekend all in to talk about Livingston. But as always, guys, you can find this episode as well as all our other episodes on your preferred podcast streaming site. Just search for Talk Livi or follow us or subscribe to ensure that you don't miss another episode.
We'll start the episode off by discussing Livy's impressive 4-0 away win against Dundee as the Lions discovered their goal-scoring touch in the city of Discovery.
Our women's side were back in action as they welcomed Greenock Morton to the Tony Macaroni Arena. We'll discuss all the action as the Lionesses ran out 4-2 winners.
Euan spoke with author, podcaster and Dundee United fan Jeff Webb to preview their visit to West Lothian on Wednesday.
And finally, we'll look ahead to the visit of league leaders Celtic as they look to end their spaghetti-had hoodoo. Can the Lions keep up their impressive form against the Hoops?
Livy made a trip to Dens Park looking to push clear from the teams at the bottom of the table and keep themselves in the top 6 mix. The Lions achieved that with a stunning first 20 minutes and running out 4-0 winners against Dundee. Euan, there can't be much complaints after that, is there?
Absolutely not, mate. Absolutely not. I think, obviously you got the early goal after 6 minutes and you're kind of thinking, right, that's good. We've got something to defend. And then, 21 minutes in, you've got Dundee fans leaving the ground. I've never seen anything like it in my life at a game of football. And, I've been to many a game of football over the years. So it was some afternoon all in. And as I mentioned there, we got off to a really fast start. Alan Forrest does brilliantly to reach the byline. From a Dundee perspective, the defending is utterly shambolic, to be honest, for that goal. Forrest has managed to beat 3 players pretty easily and cut the ball back, and the ball's managed to work its way to Bruce Anderson, who manages to hook it into the net with his left foot. And, as I say, that gave us something to hold on to. But we went on the offensive, and kind of what Davey spoke about before the game, the last couple of league games in particular, we've let chances go amiss and it's cost us. And we showed that ruthless streak on Saturday against Dundee. And we managed to get the second goal. It's brilliant link-up play initially by Bruce and Newbley on the right-hand side. And then Joel's managed to hit the byline as well, just brushing off his man and rolling it across the 6-yard box. Kind of reminiscent of Pitsy's goal against Partick Thistle in the playoffs, actually, at Livy. The finish, arriving in the 6-yard box late and putting it into the roof of the net. But we then went and got the third. Again, it's really switched on thinking by Alan Forrest with a quick free kick. Nicky Devlin again has rolled the ball across the 6-yard box, and there's Bruce Anderson for what I'd class as kind of Bruce Anderson goals, one touch finish in and around the 6-yard box, a poacher's goal. And it's frightening how similar all 3 of our goals were as well. We were absolutely coasting at that point, and you'd completely turned the home crowd against against Dundee and the new manager in his first game in charge as well at Dens Park. I know Dundee had a header from Sweeney just before half time, which Stryjek's comfortably dealt with. But second half, Dundee are in that position where they're 3-0 down. They need to go for it to an extent, but if they go for it, we're just going to counter on them and potentially open them up. And to be honest, even second half, we were the only team that looked like scoring and adding to the goals that we already had. Bruce had a chance, which cut back to him. He's put wide. Pitts had an effort, a brilliant turn. He's sent Charlie Adam for a hot dog with a turn inside the Dundee half. Holt had an effort, which Lawler saved. Pitts is unfortunately offside for the rebound, and Fitzy's had a header, which sits side netting. But then, Fitzy might be looking for a game up top. I think he's trying to compete with Bruce Anderson, showing what he's got in the penalty box with the finish that he had. Again, Alan Forrest, he'd had a series of corners where he hadn't really beat the first man, but his second cross was always really dangerous. This time he decided to just roll it into Fitzy, and it's a fantastic composed finish by Fitzwater into the far corner. And as I say, the game was already dead and buried, but just to add insult to injury really. And Shinnie had an effort late on which was saved by Lawler. But and Matt, since we've came back up to the top flight, I can't think of a more comfortable afternoon for us. I genuinely can't think of a more comfortable afternoon that we've had, especially going away from home. And there was elements to it. I'm not even exaggerating. It felt like a training exercise. I couldn't get over how poor Dundee were. I look back at the home game against them under McPake, and don't get me wrong, we deservedly won the game, but they had a little bit more about them then, and I really fear for Dundee if that's the level they're going to be at under McGee. I can't see where they're picking up any points between now and the end of the season based off that performance. But from a Livy perspective, I think I'll come out and say it, Angus. I'm normally worried about what's behind us. I think we're safe. That result is seen as safe, going along with St Johnstone's result against Ross County as well. So I think that's us safe, and I think we can now really focus on pushing towards the top six now.
Yeah, I think the two results between ourselves and Dundee and the St Johnstone and Ross County games are very, very season defining. I think that both Dundee and St Johnstone would have been looking at this weekend and been thinking that this was the opportunity for them to drag both of us back into a potential, relegation battle. And neither side were able to do so. Obviously, going into this game with Dundee, they just came off the back of, a narrow 3-2 defeat against Celtic, where, they defended, reasonably well. I know they conceded 3 goals still, but, they did everything that they could really ask for. They put their bodies on the line and all of that. To see, a complete 180 in their, defensive efforts against us is quite stunning in all honesty. But this is something I think you were saying at the game yesterday. Why are they setting up, with a 5-3-2 against Livingston at home in all honesty? Obviously, they're showing us a wee bit of too much respect, I would say, there. If you're a Dundee fan, I think if you're seeing your team setting up so defensively from the start at home in a must-win game, then you're going to be asking a lot of questions. And Mark McGee will not have won over too many fans already with that. And then obviously the performance is even worse. So, they ended up quickly changing, back to a back four. But, the game was already done by then. You're absolutely spot on regarding Dundee. They do seem to be bottom. And Mark McGee said that they seem to be bottom for, performances like that. It does look like a very dark time for them, and I don't really see them doing much more. I feel like the rest of the teams within that kind of mix are going to be too strong for them, but you never know. And they'd actually been on a wee decent run before McPake got sacked, so the league is very, very strange, and they will probably end up picking up some points that you'll be like, how have they done that? But going back to ourselves, to a man, we're absolutely incredible. I don't think anything can ever be taken away from how professional a performance it was from us, how effective a performance it was, how clinical a performance it was. David obviously talked about in previous weeks that he needs more clinical finishing from, the forward line. Doesn't get much better than that, with Anderson, getting a brace, Pittman getting involved. And, it was 4-0 going on 5-6-7, basically. Extremely pleasing. And, the clean sheet as well. As, we went 3-0 up, the thing that maybe would have been in fans' minds would, right, don't get complacent, don't allow them like an easy way into the game. And you can't even really say that they ever did come back into it a wee bit. I mean, like the boy Daly Campbell at right wing back, I think he put in like 2 crosses that one got blocked and one Fitzwater just cleared. That's genuinely kind of as good as it got, other than that Sweeney header, which Striek gathered easily. Going into that second half, they brought on Charlie Adam and Niall McGinn to, try and, give them something back into the game, but it didn't do anything for them. I think Charlie Adam, kicked more players and he kicked the ball, in all honesty. Pittman, I think, I'm going to single out for a special bit of praise. I think it's been a tough season for him. That turn that he does against Adam in the middle of the park and gets his shot away, absolutely stupendous. I think that was Pittman back to his very, very best. Obviously, fitness issues and that, haven't been able to see much of that this season. But it's absolutely great to see him in that kind of form again, and what a difference it does make, having that extra player making those runs into the boxes, and he got his reward. But yeah, everybody's absolutely tremendous, very, very pleasing, and it sets up a very big week for us that hopefully we can take some more points in.
Yeah, I agree with you. Singling out Pitts, I thought Pitts was absolutely fantastic at the weekend. Albeit, I think Cheb's probably raging with him because he's managed to get that white kit absolutely minging up at Dens Park. So Cheb will probably be spitting feathers trying to clean that for the next away game when it's needed. But no, Pitts, as you say, he looked really back to his best at the weekend. I think him and Holt in particular, the midfield three, really, really stood out for me. I think Nicky Devlin, had a real appetite for getting forward yesterday because there was plenty of opportunities. I say yesterday, on Saturday, sorry. Newbley, I don't think Dundee knew how to handle him at all. They didn't know what to do with him. And again, what we touched on in the previous game against St Mirren with Newbley, has this brilliant knack of slowing the game right down and then just injecting a little burst of speed with a little ball round the corner, or spinning his man. And as I say, he just didn't know what to do with him at all. And Alan Forrest as well was a live wire. All across the park, I think we were excellent. Even going to the centre half, Fitzy made a couple of really important blocks during the game, obviously added with his goal as well. Io had as comfortable afternoon as he'll probably have. Max as well could have got a deck chair out. It was that comfortable for him most of the afternoon. So, as I say, I struggled to think of another game since we came back up into the top flight that has been as comfortable as that. I think the only other one I could maybe think of is when we beat Dundee 4-0 when Jim McIntyre got appointed in our first season. I think that's the only other game. Even if you look at the 5-0 against Hearts, it was 0-0 at half time in that game. And all the goals came in at like a 15-minute spell as well, a mad 15 minutes. So it was such a comfortable afternoon. It would be rude not to mention the cinch incident of the day, which was Mark McGee having a go at a young lad who's went to try and film him. I mean, you can't write this stuff, can you? Scottish football is completely and utterly unrivaled, doesn't it, Angus?
Oh yeah, it's it's just amazing, how the same thing could happen twice. I mean, the young lad, he's probably too young to even remember, the first incidents that ever happened as well. So just, for that kind of prophecy to be fulfilled, it's absolutely glorious. Again, it's another incident that's probably not going to cover Mark McGee, and great standing with the Dundee fans. But in all honesty, I can kind of understand his reaction. He's just been, absolutely scalped 4-0. The first thing that he sees is just a phone coming out of nowhere. I think the saving grace is, he probably turns around at the time and he sees it as like a younger kind of supporter. If it wasn't, I would love to have seen what the reaction properly would have been. Maybe we'd have had another get that tiff incident on our hands. But it's absolutely incredible. A good shout out has to go to Blair, who's in charge of the club's TikTok account and has made that great one-way Fitzwater's goal with that edited over it. It's already doing great interactions. I think the last time I've seen it had like over 10,000 likes or something. So absolutely spot on. Fair play to him. The media team continue to nail it. Yet again.
As we said, it's an incredibly comfortable afternoon, but it's really teed up that game against Dundee United on Wednesday night as well, hasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think going into the game against Dundee United, we've really now closed the gap between us. Every game now between every team in that 10th to 4th position, you're looking at it as if it's like whoever wins is going to leapfrog the other, because it is that tight. These kind of games are going to be so important now in deciding who's going to end up in the top 6. And Dundee United were a team who've kind of been sitting in that position for a wee while now. I would say poor form, but they don't lose an awful lot either. They draw a lot of games. It's maybe kind of cost them. who knows, if we get a victory here, it could put us in a good driving seat and put the pressure on them, to get more points on the board, through winning matches and that. But yeah, very, very much excited for it, and hopefully it's a similar performance from ourselves.
Obviously, I previewed the game with Jeff, which we'll hear from the Dundee United perspective later on. But looking at the stats, they've only won 3 games in 18 in the league. As you say, there's been a number of draws in amongst all that, but they're not exactly a team that's on fire, but yet still find themselves 5th in the league. It's such a bizarre league this season. But these head-to-heads could be the difference between making it into the top 6 or being in the bottom 6 this season. So, we've already picked up 4 points against Dundee United this season. I think, if we can go and win on Wednesday night, we're really, really looking in a good position, because, normally when you make it into the top 6, 6th and 5th spot maybe sneak in over the last couple of games prior to the split, and they're more or less just making up the numbers in the top 6. I think this year you're going to have, 4th, 5th, 6th all competing for European places. So I think it should make it really entertaining come the end of the season and give all the teams a bit more to play for when they do make it in there. So yes, it's going to be an exciting end to the season, I think, for a lot of teams, because there's a lot to play for, obviously, with the European places going down to potentially 5th place, depending on the cup results and things like that. So it's a massive game on Wednesday night, but hopefully we can take that ruthlessness we showed at Dens Park into the game at Livi on Wednesday. Our women's side were back in action against Greenock Morton at the Tony Macaroni Arena. A double from Ashley Fish, along with strikes from Rachel Walkinshaw and Fee Boslam, secured a 4-2 victory. Angus, what were your thoughts on the performance?
From what I saw, it was largely good.
I've chucked you under the bus, yeah.
I was absolutely done by a pre-match graphic checked the night before. It said the kickoff was 3:30. So you can only imagine my surprise when I showed up about 20 when, I could just see, an actual game going on. And I was like, oh no, what's happened here? Like, quickly ran, got a pie, walked up, and I saw you. I was just kind of like shaking my head. I was just like, what's happened here? Obviously, nobody else had, been kind of fooled in that way. But regardless, it got there, and it was apparently 2-0 to us. Thankfully, it was a pair of goals apparently that, I could easily imagine Rachel Walkinshaw scoring a goal from the edge of the box, as well as Ashley Fish scoring, a one-touch finish within, the 18-yard box. Doesn't take very much to picture that. It's the kind of signature goals from both of them. From what I then ended up seeing, it was kind of a controlled performance from the lassies. Got the ball down, controlled a lot of possession. Not an abundance of chances being created, but, very much in command of the game. The squad had been rotated a wee bit as well. The likes of Jen Dodds and Jess Murphy, Shannon Mulligan were in the starting 11. A wee bit more game time given to, some other players as well. But yeah, it seemed to be, kind of an easy performance for them. I think, obviously not seeing the 2 goals, but the 2 goals seemed to have, kind of taken the stuffing out of the game a wee bit. It seemed as if, Morton were already trailing, and to be fair to Morton, they would come into the game a wee bit more as it went on, mainly in the last kind of 20 minutes or so. But in that first half, there wasn't an awful lot that they were troubling with, bar one glorious effort that Charlotte Ferguson has to, deserve a whole lot of credit for, making a brilliant double save for. The second one in particular looks as if, the Morton forwards is easily going to put it in the back of the net, and Charlotte does absolutely incredibly well to, to just grab a hold of it. That would have been the turning point in the game. I think that would have been interesting to see, how it would have went on from there. At 2-1, we would then go up the park, and Fiona Boslam would score what appears to be, a very rare goal. She's tweeted out saying, it happens once every few years. So I'm very glad that I was there to witness that wee bit of
You made it for that bit. You made it for that bit, mate.
Not gonna lie, I appreciate you actually waiting for me, unlike Rachel and Ashley. Like, come on, what's that about? That gave us, the game was just kind of easy from that point, to be honest. Second half, the game kind of started again with, us creating more chances. How Ashley Fish didn't have a hat-trick, not a clue. Hit the bar. There was a good chance in the first half that she kind of scuffed wide. And then in the second half as well, they had another effort that, probably should have done better with, but eventually, got the second goal for her. And yeah, again, the game was just kind of going to kind of put her out a wee bit. Morton, to be credit to them, they didn't stop their efforts at all. First goal that they scored, absolutely tremendous lob from, quite a good distance. And then, they ended up getting like a second one, and it looked as if it was maybe going to be a wee bit of a nervy ending, because if they'd got a third goal, I don't think it would have been too comfortable for us in the slightest, but managed to hold on, a 4-2 victory, a very deserved one, I would say, despite, a wee bit of a late scare. But yeah, overall, I think you've got to be very pleased with the performance, Euan.
I really enjoyed the first 15-20 minutes. They were excellent. Probably the best 15-20 minutes of the game, Angus, I would say. Now, it was, as you say, without being there, you can almost picture what the goals were like. Balls falling to Rachel Walkinshaw at the edge of the box, left foot on the kind of half volley, and it's gone into the corner of the net. Keeper managed to get a fingertip to it, but not enough to keep it out. Great start. And then, Sharon Hughes-Lee's ghosted down the right-hand side, hung a ball up to the back stick, and Ashley Fish is up at the back post and heads it into the net. Really good start from the girls. And again, it was kind of a theme for this podcast this week, is that ruthlessness that we've talked about with the girls over the course of the season, is the amount of chances they create, but sometimes, they don't take them, and they end up in a bit of a precarious situation in some games, especially against the better sides in the league. But they really put Morton to the sword early doors, and as you say, it probably took a little bit of nerves out of it, and they were able to express themselves. And that double save from Charlotte Ferguson is quite important at the time of the game. Morton get one back in it at that point, again, could make it a little bit nervy, but Fee Boslam's managed to turn the ball home for the third to make it 3-0 at half time. And as you say, Ashley Fish, how she's not coming away with a hat-trick after that game. 1v1 second half, she's hit the crossbar as well. Another chance I remember that she had, as you said, one in the first half as well, 1v1 she's had. So she'll be annoyed with herself that she's not managed to get a hat-trick and pull clear of Jen Dodds in the scoring charts for the girls this season. But she did manage to make it 1v1, really calm finish from her to make it 4-0. But yeah, there was a little bit nervy come the end. A couple of really good strikes from a Morton point of view, as you say. Fantastic lob from about probably best part of 25 to 30 yards out. Charlotte's not a lot she can do in goals. And the second one, we've given away possession near the edge of our own box, but again, it's a really good clean strike into the bottom corner. Again, not a lot Charlotte Ferguson can do with it, but I think the game was done at that point. It's a bit like when we're talking about the men's game, the game was probably done at that point, at the time of the game when Morton did get their goals. It was maybe the last 5 minutes of the game. So yeah, it was a comfortable afternoon for the girls all in. And that ruthlessness they showed first half in particular, I think was the basis of the result. And it's something we've spoke about during the season. So it's good to see them show that ruthless streak in front of goal.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it is something, even though we've got two strikers, who are both on, 15 kind of plus goals, we've kind of talked about the real need to kill games off. And I think that's what they'll be most happy with. Probably maybe not so happy that, they've not added more to it, but, forward players are always going to kind of be greedy and want to score as many as they can. So, hopefully, the next kind of game that we go on to, it'll be a similar effort. I don't think we've actually got a game next week. I think, for some reason, the way that the splitter that works out, somebody has to miss out perhaps. So I think it is a wee couple of weeks until our next match. And I think it's against Ayr United, who I think we just played quite recently there, with Gemma Mason scored a last minute goal. So hopefully the lassies will keep on ticking over, maybe get a friendly in or something like that, that people can go down and watch to keep them ticking over. But it's going to be a good, interesting, end to the season for them as well. So hopefully people can get down and give them the support they deserve as well.
Yeah, well, that was the bonus for us yesterday. The sun was shining for a change when we went down to watch the girls. It was a damn sight more pleasant than the last couple of times I've been down, where I've taken about a week to defrost. But no, I really encourage any Livy fans who are at a loose end on a Sunday afternoon, get down and watch the girls, because they are in the mix for promotion this year, and I'm sure they'd really, really appreciate any support that you can give them between now and the end of the season. I'm delighted to welcome Dundee United fan Jeff Webb onto the podcast. Jeff, how you doing?
Yeah, not too bad, mate. Not too bad yourself.
I'm not too bad. Obviously, you'll be as happy with our result at the weekend as we are, considering you're a United supporter and us going to Dens Park and giving them a bit of a doing. But after what was an excellent start to the season for Dundee United, there was quite a slump in form, but you still find yourselves in 5th spot. What's the feeling like amongst the supporters with the campaign so far?
I mean, to start with, yeah, we could spend 25 minutes just laughing at Dundee. That was what a day. What a club. Yeah, it's been a bit of a weird one, to be honest, because I was there yesterday, and then I was there a couple of weeks ago when we played Partick. The performances have been very brutal to watch, to be honest with you. I mean, where to start? So Sam Coates is like, I'm not even sure he went to a positivity camp and just sticks to it rigidly no matter what happens in the game. He always comes up with positives. It's like he's listening to motivational speakers where remember, you get a shit sandwich, so you get the good bit, bad bit, good bit again. I don't think he really necessarily watches a completely same game as everyone else does. It's not been, if you look at the table, and if you look at the table without watching any of the games, you'd think that's not a bad season so far. 5th, yeah. Quite comfortable probably for a top 6 finish. Not saying that we will get one, but we're definitely within the shouts. And you're kind of thinking to yourself, so it looks great on paper, but the performances have been terrible, haven't they? I mean, honest to God, I don't know obviously how many of your listeners went to the game at Tannadice just before Christmas, but Jesus Christ, that was not a footballing spectacle, man. I mean,
I loved it.
The highlight for most of United fans was watching some boy in the Livy stand getting pulled out for some reason halfway through the first half. I mean, the rest of that game was painful to watch. It was eye-bleedingly bad. Against Partick the other week, we were fairly eye-bleeding bad. Against Rangers, we played not actually too bad. I mean, you can't really, as you guys will know, you can't really judge an old firm performance, really. It doesn't. Your task's not to get beat that badly, so you take it. Against Aberdeen, I thought we were actually not too bad to start with, and in the second half, both teams were just terrible. I felt bad for Fergie. That was the game we came back up for, and mate, what is going on here with this?
Poor Fergie.
Poor Fergie. I mean, what a life that man's led. So terrible. Nah, I mean, to be where we are, it's quite impressive compared to the style of football we had last season under completely forgot the guy's name. That's terrible.
Mickey Mellon.
Mickey Mellon.
It was that uninspired. It was that uninspired. You've managed to forget who your manager was last year.
I was by the man that I never witnessed. Compared to we're not getting doings. We do look very content at the back now. It's just really crap. I mean, honest, the performance, the players are obviously doing something, but you're kind of sitting there watching it thinking, are we not as bad as we all think we are, or is everyone else as bad as we are? And I'm starting to hazard the guess it might be the latter, to be honest. I really don't know where to start with Tam Coates. I don't think he inspired many people because his appointment seemed a bit strange. It came out of nowhere.
Yeah, well, kind of to touch on that, obviously Tam Coates got the job, but I mean, he was in the dugout for a couple of games last season, thoroughly enough. One of them was against ourselves at Livi. What was the reaction like when Tam Coates got the job? And you mentioned about the style of play. Again, from somebody outside looking in the games we played against United this season in comparison to last, I think the style of football, is significantly better than last season. But that's not to say it's, obviously you watch them a lot more regularly than me, but I think from the snippets I see, there is an improvement in the way that you guys play in comparison to last season under Mellon.
Yeah, we do try to keep the ball on the deck more often, which is a benefit because last year it spent the entire time in the air. We don't seem to be doing it as so brutal as it is under Mickey Mellon. We do try to pass through the lines. The thing that annoys people is we never seem to have that final out ball. We seem to do a lot of build-up work, but never really finish it. We just sort of, great, we've gone from one box to the other box, no bad, and then we just sort of stand still. So it's a bit annoying. I understand he's playing with the players he's got, so that's fair enough. Dylan Levitt has come onto a game. I think the thing for Tam Coates was the fact that he wasn't an inspiring choice. About 4 weeks before he was announced, it was leaked that he might be the manager. and the backlash was fairly strong that people didn't really want him. I think it's more his managerial experience consisted of County Hearts, and that was pretty much it. As a player, you can't really take it as a player too much. As a player, he never really went up much further beyond League One, I think. So there wasn't really that great inspire. It was then leaked that he might be the manager. People were not for it. 4 weeks later, he becomes the manager, and you're kind of thinking, would the club go initially announce it, and the backlash? Yeah, it wasn't really overwhelming. He's had a lot of hard work to get fans inside. At the start of the season, it seemed like he turned the corner and people were coming towards it, but that spell during December, when we played you guys last, I think that turned a lot of fans against him. And even at the Partick game where we won, it was not an inspiring performance. People were not happy. We're pleased with beating Ian McCall was the main. It wasn't so much anything else. It was like, get around Ian McCall and we'll all be happy. But it's really difficult. I don't really know. I think some fans are just sort of meh towards him. I'm probably one of those, not really actively against him. I'm just a bit like, if he left, you wouldn't be surprised. If he stayed, fair enough. So, yeah, I feel bad for him because as a guy, he seems like the sort of person that really, really wants to be positive all the time. Like that Nigel Atkins down in England who kept doing motivational bloody videos during the lockdown. He seems to be just one step away from being a mental nut on Twitter about being fucking happy about everything. Outside of that, he's doing an okay job. I mean, he's got his fifth at the end of the day. Like, we are within 1 point of a European spot, so can't really complain too much. He's got us into the last 8 of the cup, which is again is a good thing. And I think he's saved a lot of hassle by Dundee being mental, just 120 yards down the road. Them being basket cases, I think, takes a lot of pressure off him. And the fact St Johnstone have been shit. So,
well, there you go. Vast majority of
like,
rivals have been so bad this season, it makes Tam Courts look good, doesn't it?
I mean, Aberdeen have been fucking Stephen Glass extraordinaire. Dundee have been fucking mental. St Johnstone have just exploded. And so, when you've got all your competition around you doing shit, as long as you're not in the bottoms, as long as you're not in the bottom half, people go, you're doing an all-right job, aren't you, at the end of the day?
Well, you mentioned a little bit there, but I was looking at the stats this season. United are the second lowest scorers in the league, but also have the third best defensive record, joint defensive record. It's obviously safe to say where United's problems have been this season. You kind of mentioned it, just that lack of, there is some nice build-up play in there, but it's that lack of cutting edge in the final third, isn't it?
We signed the league's top scorer and then decided to pump him out onto the wing. We've got Mark McNulty, who, when he got injured against Hibs in the League Cup, during that period of time when he was away, if you spoke to some fans, he turned into prime Messi, and we were missing prime fucking Messi, and he comes back and he scored a penalty against Aberdeen. Tony Watt would have scored that penalty against Aberdeen, no fairness. We've got Niskasen on the wing, who is a very good. He's rapid, and he's in the last few weeks definitely come onto a better game. It seems to be the connection between the midfield and the striking force, which seems to be our biggest issue at the minute. And Mark McNulty against Rangers, to be fair to him, as much as he gets shit, he did put one hell of a shift in, and he kept them occupied. So if we can get balls to him, then he's not too bad. The problem is we don't really have that some sort of connecting player unless Nicky Clark comes on, because we're playing Tony Watt out of position, and then we're relying on.
Clark likes to kind of drop off, doesn't he, and almost play as a 10 rather than a centre forward, doesn't he? Quite a lot. Yeah,
so that's what we're missing realistically. Like I said, didn't live it in the last couple of games. Has definitely come onto a really good run of form. So hopefully he can pick up for that problem. Him and Ian Harkes are both. Ian Harkes is having some sort of weird renewal of life. He likes to score important goals in 1-0 victories, usually against a team that the fans really don't like.
Well, I mean, a couple of his goals that just off the top of my head this season, did he not score a winner in the Dundee Derby, and then he equalised at Celtic Park, didn't he? So, prime examples of important goals in games where, he gets the limelight, doesn't he?
Oh yeah, he likes a derby game. So he scored the winner against Aberdeen, he scored the winner against Dundee, he won us the penalty against Aberdeen. He scored against Partick to annoy Ian McCall, which is always pleasant. He scored against Celtic at Celtic Park. He can pop up with an important goal. And they're usually screamers as well. He doesn't do tapping. He does outside the box screamers. So yeah, we're not doing as bad as I think if you break the players down. It's just, I think going forward, we just need a bit more confidence, I suppose, is probably the best way to put it. That one player that can link the play. And
You kind of mentioned Mark McNulty there. There's some obvious connections. Tam Courts was an ex-Livingston player for a handful of games. Liam Fox, the assistant manager, obviously a Livingston legend as well. And Tony Craig, I think, still there, who was our goalkeeping coach last year. But Mark McNulty's obviously, he was a big fan's favourite at Livy. He's safe to say he's had a tough time at United the last couple of seasons.
yeah, I don't think last season can be taken into that, because people weren't there. So what you were witnessing was what the camera showed you. Mark McNulty, I was quite pleased when we signed him, because he isn't an out and out. You sign him because you want goals. That's why you sign a striker. But he works really well with someone playing off him. And lately, last couple of games, he's tried to play Tony Watt off him, and it does seem to be slowly, and it is slow, kicking in, and the two of them getting to know each other. I feel for Mark McNulty, his future's always been a bit in doubt. Not so much at United, but the fact that he's still technically known from Reading.
Yeah.
Which I think he becomes a free agent in the summer.
I read an interview with Sparky recently where he was saying he can't wait for his contract to be up at Reading. So he's obviously not particularly enjoyed his time there. So, hopefully he manages to get his kind of future and finds himself somewhere settled, doesn't he?
Yeah, he's also had off-field issues going on with that betting thing as well.
Yeah.
Which seems to be going on for ages. It genuinely feels like it's been going on for like 2 or 3 years. It might well have been, actually. I googled it. But I do feel for him a little bit. He does get a fair bit of stick. Like I said, when he was out injured, he did turn into prime Messi. If you spoke to some people, how we got Scotland cap still slightly surprises me. He isn't as bad as Eamon Brophy, who is the world's the biggest enigma known to Scottish football. But he's sort of just I don't really want to say it without sounding too offensive to him, but he's sort of like just a bang average Scottish striker. Like he's a big man up front. That's the sort of player he is. But he has the talent and he can finish. He likes scoring against Aberdeen, which is always a winner. I think he's more than good enough to stay at United. He annoys some people because he doesn't score enough. But I think when we see him against teams like Celtic and like Rangers, teams that we need to defend against, he does not stop running, which is a credit to himself, because there are other strikers at other clubs who definitely do stop running.
Sparky, when he came through with us, I remember his debut. It was away at Montrose when we were down in the 3rd division, and he was a 16-year-old. And he came on for the last couple of minutes, and his first touch was to control the ball, and his second he put it in the net. And and like Sparky is one of our all-time leading goal scorers from his spell. I think he's only a couple off kind of being the record holder. So like Sparky's kind of, I think his game's changed a lot since he was with us. He was always that kind of running in behind type striker when he was with us. And I think over his time down south, his link-up side of his game's improved quite a lot. I noticed that when he was at Hibs, when he came back up the road, when he went on loan there. And I think he has improved more as an all-rounder. But sadly, I always found when he was at Livy, he was a really streaky striker, and that he would go 5 or 6 games where it doesn't look like he's ever going to score. But then he would have 5 or 6 games where he scores something like 10 goals in those games. Like, he was bizarre like that when he was at Livy, but he was always very good for a goal when he was with us. But obviously, it's not been quite the same since he's arrived at Dundee United, has it?
No, like I say, he definitely works well in the two, or with someone playing almost directly off him. So when he's played with Nicky Clark in particular, his assist rate is actually quite good. What's the one they called it before the assist? Pre-assist, basically he's
assist and assist.
He's good at setting up the goal. He's good at dragging defenders out of the way. He's good at basically making the space for someone else to score, which again is credit to him. He likes scoring against Aberdeen, which is always going to cheer people up. I don't think he's overly a bad player. It's just he's a bit. When you say he's streaky, that's true. I mean, at United he's been streaky, but he's been streaky at United because his injury rate has been quite bad. I mean, he's always had. Last season he was having niggly injuries, so we play 2 or 3 weeks and he'd be out for a couple of weeks and then back in. This season it's been a bit. He started off. No, he didn't score prior to his injury this year, but he was setting up. Yeah. And then he's been out injured. We really struggled when he was out injured. But I think we were struggling because we just literally didn't have anyone to put the ball to, which is what when we played Livy like in December, as you guys will remember. Like the United's biggest issue was the fact we simply could not put the ball in the back of the net. We could not find that one person on the penalty spot to do it. We created the chances for it, we just couldn't. convert it. So yeah, Sparky, like I don't know if he'll stay at United after his contract runs out at Reading. I think he enjoys being there. I think he enjoys the dressing room, but I don't honestly know whether he'd stay or not. Yeah, he'll probably go with fans' best wishes. I don't think anyone holds anything particularly against him. He's not a bad player. He definitely runs around a lot, which always makes him a fan's favourite. I wouldn't say he's a fan's favourite just now, but he's not the one that will get booed, put it that way.
Yeah. Well, I've noticed in recent games, United have kind of switched a back three, certainly the last couple of games. But what do you expect from United on Wednesday, and what players do Livy really need to keep an eye out for? Who's going to cause Livy some issues?
To be honest, I don't think United know what the way they're going to line up. It all fucking depends, doesn't it? Damn Court's magic ball. Nah, I think Ross Graham will obviously play. Matty Smith will play. The back three system, it looks all right, but the games that you've been at, it's a back three when we're attacking. But as soon as we start defending, it definitely looks like two solid backs of four, which is very much true. Ross Graham makes the Birmingham fans raging, so that's
You're all about just annoying other fans, aren't you? Is this a United thing?
It's not just annoying other fans. Dundee fans, it's worthwhile because it's always funny, but because they're so raging all the time. Old Firm fans because they're raging all the time, and Aberdeen fans because they think they're big. No, I don't actually know, to be honest, because I think he's played the same starting 11, not same starting 11, but he's not made many changes in the last couple of games. Ross Graham's come in and has been really good. Ross Graham, as far as we're all aware, is a right back. And like I said, when we're attacking, he definitely pushes out. Against Rangers, it was hard to tell because we were every man the dog behind the ball. Against Aberdeen, we were fairly attacking to start with, and then both teams seemed very keen not to lose, rather than to try and win. I think he's going to try and play that Multi and Tony Watt up front together. I mean, the Livy pitch is quite tight, so Tony Watt wants to be in the middle. Let him be in the middle. He was the league's top scorer. Mark McNulty is not the league's top scorer, so let Tony Watt play in the middle. Niskasen on the one wing is really good. Liam Smith has been sort of playing wing back in the last couple of games. Scott McMahon, I feel like, had a bit of a hard one with that one because Scott McMahon has been pushed outside. At the start of the season, he was doing really. He was phenomenal when we first signed him. So it's a bit of a harsh one that he's been pushed to the side. But I think it's because he's tried to fit more midfielders in because we signed Kevin McDonald.
Yeah,
who he's shown his class already. I mean, we lost obviously Fuchs to Peterborough in the window. By which point, when we lost him, I think most United fans will agree on the fact that he played really well in the TV games. The games that weren't live on TV, he somewhat disappeared.
Well, I quite like Jandro Fuchs just purely for barging into the back of Andrew Shinney in the last game to get to give away a penalty. So I'm a big fan of it.
By that point, it was blatant what he was doing. Like he and obviously Livy will have the same sort of players to do this, right? So when they're on TV, people that player's amazing. Jet, that player's amazing. He's amazing. And then when the game's not on TV, you're like, you watch the player for 90 minutes, and you think to yourself, mate, what are you doing? In the Dundee derby in August, Fuchs covered every blade of grass and he was phenomenal. Like he was that covered. He got to that many places before the board did that. Before I got home, he was in my missus. So he was that good. And then when it got to the Livy game, you were watching and thinking, what's going on here? Why are you so pissed? We've obviously signed Kevin McDonald though. Kevin McDonald, you can see he's got touch of class. He can ping a ball, he can land it. Between him and Charlie McGrew, I swear to God, they have competitions of who can ping the ball the best. So I think the style that he'll go for will be 5 in the middle, but with McDonald slightly deeper, pinging the ball around. When we first signed him, the first game he played, he looked a bit ring rusty, but he hadn't played in over a year and he had that kidney transplant. But against Aberdeen, he looked very confident on the ball, comfortable, and they were struggling to get near him. So I think he'll be an important player. The thing is, that Livy pitch is small and tight. I don't necessarily know whether pinging the ball for 60 yards is going to be that useful. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what he does. I think it'll probably be a very similar lineup to the one against Aberdeen. He seems to have 2 different sorts of plans. He has one for the Old Firm and he has one against everyone else. The problem for playing against Livy is Livy play and not a million miles different to the way United tried to play. As we've seen in the last couple of games that we've played against each other, they tend to cancel each other out.
But if I had to push you for a prediction, Jeff, what are you going for on Wednesday night?
I'm going to do the same score prediction I give to every Queen's Park game, which is a 1-1. To be honest, I think the thing is, Bruce Anderson for you guys has been absolutely on fire. Yeah. And United's back line isn't the fastest, to say the least. Ross Graham's not bad for a turn of pace, but I mean, Charlie McGrew is not the fastest, but he can read the game really well. Bruce Anderson seems to be one of them players that doesn't, he seems to be one of them strikers that sort of hits it and then looks at what the goal should be. That's the sort of thing that isn't the best against, that isn't United's strongest point at defending. They tend to quite enjoy a player taking a touch. Against Rangers, take about as many touches as you want because they'll have a body in front of it by the time you take the strike. Whereas if it's against a striker that hits it first time, United tend to not to be the best at defending them ones.
Bruce has certainly been on fire. He broke a very long club record, which was Derek Lilly's record in 2004, the only player to ever reach double figures in the league for Livingston. So I think he's a goal off equaling the record that Derek Lilly set, which was 12. So he'll be fancying himself to get a goal on Wednesday night. But I believe that you've just released a book, Jeff, and you've also started your own podcast recently as well. For any of our listeners that might be interested, give us a rundown on what the book's about and what the podcast is about as well.
All right, so we'll do the book first because that's the one that makes me the most amount of money. So yeah, it's called Scotland's Lost Clubs, and it is pretty much what it says on the tin, really. It's about the clubs that have played in the league that are no longer with us. Meadowbank Thistle I mentioned in it, in case anyone was interested.
There you go. There's an excuse for Livy fans to buy it right there. So there you go.
Yeah, it's a great read. My mum enjoyed it very much, and she hasn't read it. No, it's available Amazon all over the place, but you're best off just buying it direct from me because it's best for me. I'll not lie to you. So yeah, the podcast that I'm on two, to be fair. I'm on, as you were, the Scottish Football Fans Forum, and I'm also on. It's called Read the Game Pod on Twitter. I'll retweet it later. That's what it's called. Scott doesn't listen to this. He's not a Livingston fan. It's all good.
Shame on you, Scott. Shame on you.
It's worth listening because we're going over. Basically, it's just about football books, not just Scottish football books, but it's about football books throughout the world, which I'm sure will be fun and everyone will enjoy it. So yeah, give that a follow. Give me a follow. I'm on Twitter somewhere. It's been enjoyable. It's been fun, mate. Hopefully Wednesday's not as shit as we both predict, but you know.
Well, I'm kind of going along the same lines as you. I'm predicting one each as well. I think but it's quite a big game in the race for the top six. But here's hoping that you don't enjoy the game on Wednesday.
That's harsh. I don't enjoy parking at Livi. That's what I don't enjoy. Absolute bastard. I got a parking ticket in there once because I didn't realise there was a sign saying no parking, and I argued the toss back, and then they sent me a picture of the sign. I was like, fair play. Can't really argue with that.
I hope you don't get a parking fine on Wednesday night, but I do hope that we pick up the 3 points if there's any points being given out for any driving offences. But Jeff, thanks so much for coming on the podcast. It's much appreciated.
No worries, mate. It's been a pleasure.
Finally this week, Livy welcome league leaders Celtic to West Lothian as the Lions look to keep up their impressive record against them in home plastic. Euan, how are you feeling ahead of this one?
We spoke about it yesterday, and it's the two form teams in the league that are about to play each other next weekend. You know, we're second in the form table in the league, and Celtic are obviously top. So it's making for quite an interesting spectacle. But with that can sometimes come a degree of false positivity where fans maybe think, look at our record at home to Celtic and think it's almost a given that we're going to get a result. You need to bear in mind Celtic's last defeat was the 19th of September, thoroughly enough against ourselves. They've not lost a game since then, and they've managed to topple Rangers at the top of the table and have looked pretty relentless at times. Speaking about Rangers in there, the old firm game, it just shows you the change with Celtic since Postecoglou's come in, that there was only 2 players that were playing for Celtic last season that started that game, and Greg Taylor and Callum McGregor, 9 players that Postecoglou's brought in between the summer and the January window. So it just shows you the turnaround that they've had in their squad as well, in terms of Postecoglou wanting to bring in the players that he sees fit to play his style of football. And some of his signings have proved to be absolute hits. Obviously, Kyogo's struggled with injuries. The less said about him, the better. I hope it's not a recurrence of the injuries sustained against Ayo Obalai at Celtic Park that's keeping him out. But, the boy Hatate's come in and really hit the ground running with a couple of stunning displays, in particular the Old Firm game. Maeda's looked a handful up top, but, there's obvious players that they've had since the start of the season, the likes of Jota, Abada, have been very, very good as well. And another January arrival was the boy O'Reilly from MK Dons, who's settled in really quickly as well. He's looked a really classy player in the middle of the park for Celtic. So it's a big ask for us again, as it is anytime we go to play the Old Firm. But we are in very good form ourselves, and who knows if we can keep this record going. But just looking at Celtic's run since they lost to us, they've not lost domestically. They've only drawn 3 games and won the rest. All 3 of them have been 0-0s, one with ourselves, one with St Mirren, and with Hibs at the weekend there. I think the only thing we can maybe take as a positive with Celtic's form of late, you look at the Dundee game, you look at the 2 European games. I watched the game against Hibs on Sunday there, and they're not looking the same relentless Celtic, but they've still ground out results. I think the Hibs game in particular, I think Hibs defended very well and restricted Celtic to very few chances. So, yeah, I think it's going to be a similar job that we might need to do in terms of containing them a little bit. But I think compared to when we played them at the start of the season, when we did beat them, I think in an attacking sense, we are being a bit more threatening and we are creating opportunities. So I think you'll see a different Livy in terms of maybe trying to take the game to Celtic where possible a little bit more.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. If you'd asked me this, especially following that Old Firm game, I would have honestly been a wee bit fearful because, a couple of the performances that Celtic had put in, they were, electrifying essentially. Some of the attacking performances that they've had this season have been, incredible. But something's just kind of not been the same the last couple of weeks. I'm not sure why, in all honesty. They've just kind of looked a wee bit like toothless in attack, essentially. Going out against Bodo Glimt in the Europa Conference League, failing to score against Hibs, I know they scored 3 against Dundee, but, taking to like the later stages of the game to, get control of that match as well. I think the only saving grace for them genuinely in the last couple of weeks has been that, Rangers have been dropping points as well. So I think, they'll be taking a lot of things as, as a wake-up call, but I think at the same time, we're in good form. We've got to be looking at them and being thinking, there is things that we can exploit there. We've got to have faith in our own defensive capabilities, and who knows what can happen. We've already dealt them a sucker punch this season, winning 1-0 at our bit. At Celtic Park, we just defended. We're going to be a lot more confident from the kind of chances that we will be getting now, and who knows what can happen in those instances. We do seem to have a great knack against them for some reason, to draw out results or pick up the odd win now. So, yeah, it's going to be a very, very interesting dynamic as well. They've got quite a big squad. They seem to be rotating a wee bit as well. Who will play for them? We already know that, they like to get themselves in a tizzy about the plastic park. So who are they going to risk for that? Who are they not? They've got a game midweek as well. Are they going to be, overly fearful that players are going to be, too fatigued to dare step on the plastic park because they'll end up melting or something, whatever bullshit excuse they're going to come up with. Yeah, it's going to be very, very interesting. But yeah, as long as we, give a good account of ourselves, that's all the fans will always ask for against like these Old Firm sides. And if we do that, there's no reason why we can't pick up a point here.
I think the other thing to bear in mind with Celtic, I believe they are the top scorers in the league and they've got the best defensive record, hence why they're probably top. But they do have a frailty, which is set plays. I think they've got the joint second worst record from defending set plays in the league this season, if I check my stats right. That's something that we can hopefully try and exploit, and maybe something that Davey will be looking at over the coming days to really work on and potentially cause a few problems against Celtic from set plays. You look at the Dundee game recently that we highlighted, both goals come from set plays. So that's something I'm sure we'll be working on and looking at to try and exploit Celtic. In terms of personnel for it, I know it's quite difficult when we've got the game midweek, but we have been unchanged with our starting 11 the last 3 games. How do you see us lining up for this? Do you maybe see us tweaking our shape ever so slightly?
I don't think so. The only kind of change I could possibly think of would maybe be, do you change somebody out for Newbley to get, that complete defensive capabilities on the right wing? That's the only thing I can maybe think of. And maybe would you consider putting Newbley through the middle so you have, that big presence up top who can, hold the ball up? I know it's daft to suggest that, Bruce Anderson might not start the game as, one of the league's top goal scorers, but just some different games, call for different kind of players, and Newbley's kind of presence up top could maybe be, a good thing for us. At the same time, though, if he was this continuous place on the right wing, it was a great outball for us to have. I mean, if he's up against Greg Taylor, I don't imagine Greg Taylor would have a particularly easy afternoon up against, a hulking presence like him who will, glide past players for fun. The only issue that may be there is just, will Newbley have, that defensive prowess, to get back and, to fill in gaps and stuff like that. I would imagine that's something that Davey will be addressing this weekend, with trying out and, training sessions and whatnot. And I think whatever he sees will be the thing that makes his decision up. But other than that back four, yeah, that should be it. Midfield free. If they're all fit, then they all play. It's just kind of in the forward line. It depends, what kind of thing Davey wants to see from us, what kind of style he wants to attack Celtic with. But again, I think we were talking about this following the game. We made 4 changes to our attacking line last match, but it took Pittman, Forrest, Anderson and Newbley off. Brought on Sotu, Chukwuemeka, Shinnie and Bailey. That's a great host of players to have, and you'd like to think that any of those 8 players who will be in there will put in a shift in, and there won't be like a difference in quality for the most part of whoever goes into that position. So we're in quite a healthy position at that point. I would say that whoever's there would get right behind.
Yeah, I think if you look at the previous 2 games, we did kind of go with a 4-3-3 in the first game, which was, let's be honest, it was more a 4-5-1 for given the amount of time that we had possession of the football. But the second game we went to a back 3, so there's a little bit of me that maybe looks at that. Again, looking at Celtic, it was a comparison I made when we played Rangers early in the season. Rangers had a great habit when they hit the byline or got into wide areas where they would zip a ball across the 6-yard box on the ground. Whilst I noticed Celtic yesterday, they were putting in a lot of crosses, very similar to the game at Celtic Park, looking for headed opportunities in the air. That's something that would probably suit our 2 centre-halves if you're looking at Fitzy and Obalai. So, that's something we'll need to be wary of. Will they go with someone like Giakoumakis, a bit more of a presence up top to play ourselves? Obviously, he didn't have the best afternoons when we played them at Celtic Park with the penalty miss, but that's something that we might need to look at in terms of the personnel they go with. But yeah, it's an interesting one. Davey often has a game plan for when it comes to playing the Old Firm. He likes to set up and be compact, but where possible, try and break on teams. So I think I'd be more inclined to stick with our normal shape, 4-3-3. Obviously, it'll become a 4-5-1 quite a lot of the time, being out with possession, but I'd like to see us try and cause Celtic a few problems where possible. And I think the form that we're in, I think we're more than capable of doing it as well. But let's be very clear here. I'm not getting carried away. I realise Celtic are top of the league, but it's probably as good a time as we're going to get this season again to play them, especially at home. So Angus, I'm going to push you for a prediction. What are you thinking for the game against Celtic?
Be positive. And I'm going to say, because it's obviously against Celtic, this is a very positive result. But I'm going to go for 0-0. It's not, it's not going to be, a great one for the spectators. I would take 0-0 and, described as football terrorists and whatever like that any day of the week. Absolutely. Yeah, let's go and take a point off them again.
I think I've talked myself into giving a positive prediction after saying to folk, calm down. I'm going to go for a draw as well. I don't know why. I've got a funny feeling we can do something against them. I don't know if it's our record at Livi that's playing on my mind. I don't know if I'm just in a really positive state of mind after the Dundee game at the weekend there as well. But yeah, I'm going to go 1 each. I'm going to go for a pair of draws this week. 1 each with Dundee United and then 1 each with Celtic as well. So yeah, hopefully hopefully we can keep up that incredible record that we do have against Celtic and pick up a really good result against them as well. But let's get a noisy home crowd, because we know we do get outnumbered at these games by the Old Firm, but let's hope for a really noisy home ground to spur the team on to a really good result. That's it for this week's episode of Talk Livi. Thanks again to every single one of you for tuning in, week out. If you can, we'd love to hear your feedback. Either leave us a review on iTunes or simply message us on Twitter, Facebook or Instagram.
As Euan said, we're on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. Search Talk Livi to find us. You'll find all the links to our weekly episodes on there as well. You can also find all our episodes, including this one, on all good podcast streaming sites, including iTunes and Spotify. We're also on YouTube, so don't forget to subscribe to the channel. If none of those options suit you, all you have to do is head to our website, talklivipodcast.libsyn.com, where you'll find every single episode we have done over the last few years.
That's it for this week. Thanks to all our listeners for tuning in as always, and let's hope for another great week following the Lothian's finest football team.
West Lothian is our battle cry. This is the place from which we hail. Livingston, oh Livingston, it's up to Ammonvale. Livingston, 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 oh Livingston. We love it when you score. Livingston, oh Livingston, the Ammonvale Lions roar. Livingston, oh Livingston, we realize our vision. Livingston, oh Livingston, into the Premier Division.